Again, Year 10, so today we are working on how to speak publicly with confidence and making your cue cards for your speech, because if you want to get anything over a pass, you're not going to be able to read your speech off a piece of paper. So one of the assessment objectives is having persuaded your audience. It's impossible to persuade your audience if you stand there reading your speech like that and not looking at the audience. So you need cue cards so you can take brief looks up and down. So speaking with confidence we're learning about, and cue cards today. The first thing I want you to do, if you're doing now, is watch my video and then watch the video I've linked here for you. It's about the do's and don'ts. It's a quick little recap of do's and don'ts when you're publicly speaking. Whilst you're watching it, list the do's here and list the don'ts there. When you move on to task 1, I have attached a link of America's Youth Poet Laureate. She read her poem The Hill We Climb at Biden's inauguration. She is a phenomenal example of oratory and public speaking and how it can be used effectively. She's blown up over the speech and how eloquently and persuasively she orates her speech, her poem. It's a great example there. What I want you to do is, whilst watching it, I probably would give it one watch through first and then start watching it whilst filling out the grid here, is answer the questions below. So when does she raise the pitch of her voice? When does she pause? Does she vary her pause length? When does she move her hands? And when does her facial expressions change? So examples and answers, you don't have to put a quote there, that's completely fine. You can just note a pattern. So you might say she raises her pitch of her voice when she's about to ask a question, or she's stressing a point, something like that, that's fine. And then they explain the effect. These are all the things you want to do when you are writing your speech as well. Eye contact's a basic one, so I'm not going to bother writing that down there for you because you need to have eye contact. So it's analysing a really effective orator. Task 2, what you need to do is plan out where you're going to raise your voice and where you're going to pause and where you want to put those moments of emphasis into your speech. Speeches are really rehearsed and they're very well laid out, so it would be foolhardy to leave the oration to on the day, because how you speak can greatly affect your speech. If you speak with your head covered by your speech, you could have the best persuasive dices in the world and you'd struggle to get above a merit, if not lower. So what I tend to do when I'm giving a speech is write these devices here. You could use different symbols. You don't have to use my symbols, they're just my examples. For a big pause, I'd put some dashes. Oh, they're not dashes, I can't think of the word. And then for a small pause, so emphasising a word or say it more loudly, I underline it and raise my pitch of my voice, an arrow up. And if I want to lower the pitch of my voice, I'd write an arrow down. You can come up with your own, write yourself a little key. But what you do is read through your final speech now and annotate where you're going to do this. What I'd like you to do then is practice reading your speech with these symbols, and then if it improved the delivery of your speech, explain a couple sentences just below here why you think it did. Now we're moving on to writing cue cards. As I've mentioned a couple times in this video, you can't just read off your speech up in front of your face. You're going to need to have cue cards, little prompt cards that will help you remember what you're saying on the day. Don't write out your whole speech on the cue cards because you're going to need to be able to look up and down really quickly at the cue cards. So you don't want overcrowded cue cards. I'd recommend using cue cards which are vision card size. If you don't have any vision cards, you cut up bits of paper, that's fine as well. I put the main points to prompt you on there. Then I'd like you to rehearse with your cue cards. For the last bit of lesson, task 5. If you finish early, then there's this amazing TED talk. It's just under 8 minutes long. You can walk that kind of encompasses what we've covered this half term in what devices to use, how to structure your speech, and how to orate it. So that's if you finish early, or if you're just a bit interested in it. I quite enjoyed this TED talk. I hope that helps. Email me again if you're confused on any particular part.